They're in there for a reason. Out of sight, out of mind, if you ask me.
When I was captured, there was a veteran police officer. He had a 12-gauge shotgun right here in my head, and I had a pistol on him. And he told me that he had a wife and some kids, and he certainly wanted to go home to them.
Well, they're human beings, you know.
Hey, baby, you go in there and they're going to play you like a fine violin.
My worst pain is knowing my daughter will grow up, marry, and have my grandchildren, and I'll still be in here. I'll miss it all.
Sooner or later they get out, then society has to deal with them.
You look at the lives these people had, you can understand how this happened to them.
You know what them people did? They ought to just throw away the key, the key, the key.
Behind these walls, we do the only thing we know how to do when people break the law. We lock them away, separating them from their families and loved ones, depriving them of the most precious right of all, freedom. Then, through a combination of punishment and banishment, we apparently expect a miracle to occur, that after a period of time, a corrected citizen will emerge, ready to rejoin society. What are the chances? Is being locked away a cure for frustration? Or does it only distill the anger and intensify the rage? Why are prisons jammed with men and women for whom a real chance to leave the system for good may never come? Why do up to 35% return after being released?
I was a fourth-time offender, and what is the difference is that my spirituality's been out of balance. First 3 times, not enough time and not enough desire to seek what was really missing.
For the most part, the public just wants offenders locked away and doesn't really care what happens to them. But it's the public outcry that's the loudest when the released prisoner returns to the only behavior they understand. The continuing cycle of release and return often seems hopeless. To actually change value systems, develop better coping skills, and put aside frustration and rage, something more than simply locking people away must be found. For a growing number of offenders, both men and women, this something is the Kairos experience. Through a carefully planned collaboration between Kairos and corrections officials, teams of specially trained, highly dedicated Kairos volunteers spend time with selected prisoners. This is the story of how it works and how it changes lives for participants on both sides of the wall. Kairos is a Greek word. It means time. As we use it here, it means God's special time. It's particularly well suited here in the nearly timeless environment of a prison, where weeks melt into months and then into years. Imagine, for instance, what it would feel like to know you may very well spend the rest of your time on Earth locked away from everything you hold dear.
The first few hours, it was a time of confusion. I was scared to death. I had no idea what I was getting into. Walking down the hallway and nobody was speaking, they would look at you like you were some type of a prey.
They need to have that fear and that concern. The people that they're moving in with and living right beside are as a whole not always the kind of people that you'd want to be neighbors with.
The emotional pressures felt by recently incarcerated males are multiplied several-fold for female prisoners when they enter the system.
I was so frightened that I wanted to get under the table because I felt like that was the only safe place to be at that point in time. And when I looked down, I was grabbing a hold of the table so hard that my knuckles were white.
I felt a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, missing my mother and my little boy. I believe I was still in shock because I'm not a violent type of person, and to realize that I had took someone's life was devastating for me.
Kairos is designed to transform despair into hope, rage into forgiveness, all through the word and spirit of God's unconditional love.
You know, I never knew that people can love so much, especially inmates, you know, people coming from the streets and giving their time and showing their love and the love that they receive from other churches and other groups from the outside, and they bring it in here and share that type of love, that agape love that we talked about in Kairos. You know, it's just awesome. It uplifted me, it helped me, and I believe it's another phase in my life that, you know, God's showing me that love can come from, you know, anywhere and through many facets of people.
Certainly, all prisons offer religious programs to residents, but budget, facility, and personnel constraints limit the effectiveness of even the most dedicated prison chaplains when a few must tend to the needs of so many inmates. Add to this the large number of new incarcerations each year, and the problem becomes enormous. That's why the program offered by Kairos is so very important. It works at virtually no risk and at no cost to the public.
The impact of Kairos has been tremendous institution. This is a high close institution. We deal with a lot of violent offenders. And the greatest testimony is when another resident comes up and says, I'm tired of the way I'm living, get me into Kairos, I saw so-and-so change.
The Kairos experience begins with a highly structured weekend of interaction and group activities. 42 inmates participate, led by a group of over 50 volunteers. You could call it a short course in practical Christianity. It starts out as you might expect. Inmates don't know for sure what's going to happen. They're wary, suspicious, awkwardly hesitant. Some are bewildered that complete strangers find them worth the time and effort required to bring them the gospel message of God's love.
When I first walked up the sidewalk to Kairos, it was the most wonderful feeling. Someone was shouting to me or singing to me, they loved me. And I really felt it. And that was the first time in many years. And I really felt that God had disowned me. They told me he loved me. And if anyone out there can do that for another person, it's astonishing, the results.
During the weekend, residents are challenged to accept God's call to a life of Christian witness and service, not only during their prison stay, but beyond.
First evening I went to Kairos, I'm in a habit of taking off my ID badge so people can't just look at me and identify me and associate my name with what they've heard about me. And a Kairos volunteer walked up to me, and he knew who I was. He called me JB, and he looked me right in the eye and he told me that God had given him my name months earlier, and he had been praying for me, and he stuck his hand out and said that he was glad to finally meet me. And I was just blown away that this guy even knew who I was, because I'd certainly never met him.
Inmate participants for these weekends, selected by prison chaplains, are often gang leaders within the institution. The rationale is simple. If their leadership after Kairos turns to Jesus, then who better to bring into Kairos? The weekend event begins on a Thursday evening and runs through Sunday evening. To be sure, the Kairos weekend is the pivotal point at which many hardened souls turn away from hate, anger, and despair, finding God's forgiveness, love, and peace.
Society wrote me off, and I kind of wrote society off. So it was a mutual disconnection pretty much. But Kairos kind of was that missing link that kind of brought me back on the road to being okay with feeling, because that was something that I had set aside. And it's okay to feel. You know, it's not what happens to you so much as how you react to it. And you can't let your feelings and your circumstance dictate your choices.
The events unfolding during the weekend are dramatic, and so are the results of Kairos' powerful impact. The living environment within the institution improves. Attendance at Sunday church services increases. And more important, residents who remain active in the Kairos program become committed disciples of Jesus Christ. The most meaningful part of the weekend may come at the very end, when an opportunity is given each participant to speak to the group about his or her innermost feelings resulting from the experience. Many moving testimonials are given, which can only strengthen the conviction and resolve others in the group are also experiencing. But once back in the general population, the negativity of prison life can impact even the most ardent convert. Realizing this, Kairos continues to nurture and encourage that newfound faith by forming prayer and share groups. These small groups of trusting friends meet weekly to share their faith walk. This is the primary continuing ministry of Kairos, and the way in which Kairos maintains a spiritually based community and Christian continuity within the institution.
Participating in the Kairos prison ministry has been a significant impact in my life because I've been able to personally witness men coming into a 3-day weekend, angry, frustrated, mistrusting of men, and being converted by the Holy Spirit and by the servants who were there into loving, peaceful, and forgiving men.
Charities and good works of all types like to talk about how their programs offer win-win outcomes. Just consider this: with each successful Kairos graduate, an incarcerated person gets a real chance at a productive Christian life before and after release. The taxpayer saves $26,000 a year for every released prisoner who doesn't return. A hurting family gets an important member back, far better prepared to meet the challenges of living outside the walls. You, as a Kairos volunteer, may very well take a giant step forward in your spiritual life. That's 4 big wins, and we've barely started counting. Inmates who stay with Kairos quickly show their faith in action through changed attitudes and better coping skills.
I've had the opportunity to serve as warden at both a male and female institution, and I'd have to say that the impact of Kairos has been dramatic in both cases. Inmates go through life-changing experiences and then become role models and disciples out in the institution. I would personally recommend Kairos to any warden at any facility because of the positive impact I've seen it have on the environments of prisons that I've worked in.
Do you have enough spare time in your life and love in your heart to join God in His special time? You can decide at this very moment to take part in Kairos, to give whatever you can, in whatever way you can. We sincerely hope that you'll give serious consideration to this very important Christian ministry.
You don't know me, but I bet you think you do. If you did, then you see that I'm like you. I've made mistakes. Now I pray the things I've done to be forgiven by God and His great Son. As I search for my salvation, I surrender to my Lord. Every breath I have inside me and all I can afford. 'Cause when my heart feels empty, I have faith that He will fill every void there is within me. I believe that is His will. This is my Kairos. It's my special time with God. This is my Kairos. I know someday I'll get the night to enter heaven, where I'll bask within His love. This is my Kairos.